With just a week to wait for Apple's WWDC conference kickoff keynote, it's one of the most anticipated events of the Apple year, and what we'll see is still shrouded in mystery. Software is a given, with iOS, iPadOS, watchOS, tvOS, and macOS pretty much guaranteed. But will they be joined by RealityOS for the first time? Could we see hardware for this, M2 Macs, or even the mighty Mac Pro with Apple Silicon for the first time? Let's discuss. Oh, and I got a personal email from Craig Federighi just to me, but we'll talk about that later in the video. Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell. So starting with software, because if these don't get released, then really the world is upside down and we might as well shut down the channel. iOS 16 is expected to bring some interface changes, though nothing too drastic. Many sites are reporting expectations that the top notification area will change to accommodate the change from notch to pill cameras on the iPhone 14 Pros, but as this is unannounced, I'd be very surprised if we saw anything here. Apple typically doesn't nod to future changes in software very often, at least not this blatantly. We might find something hidden in the code though. Also, we have rumours of always-on displays bringing features to Apple's lock screens. Again, this would depend on new panels for the iPhone 14 Pros, offering refresh rates that drop as low as 1 Hz, and the current iPhone 13 Pro only drops, I believe, to 10 Hz, which would be too battery-intensive to work. So again, don't expect to see this at the keynote. Notifications seem to be changed pretty much annually though, so this could well be part of the updates, but Apple has done well once again with keeping changes behind the scenes. No one expected universal control or SharePlay last year. Yeah, remember all the fuss about SharePlay? You'd already forgotten about it, hadn't you? Shared between the iPhone and the Apple Watch, though, we're expecting an overhaul of HealthKit, including better sleep tracking, an area that Apple is sadly woeful on with their current first-party software released. watchOS may also be adding a lower-powered mode, like on the iPhone and iPad, that keeps more functions available in the current time-only version. Workouts are expected to gain new types, and I'm sure the Apple Fitness Plus app will also be adding some new types of workouts. I'd like to see something around like a martial arts style workout maybe, or bodyweight workouts as a new option. Multitasking is one of the few rumours that we've heard from iPadOS, and let's be honest, it's one of the areas that so many people have found the iPad to be lacking in. Patents have shown a hardware keyboard dock that could initiate various different multitasking paradigms, including releasing the windows on the iPad from the sides and making them resizable and floating just like on a Mac. Now, it's quite possible that this could just be using the existing iPad docks that we have, the Magic Keyboard and trackpad cases, but that's not what the patents show at this point. Now, I'll say it again, perhaps Pro apps for the iPad. Last year we heard about Xcode Cloud and much more, but this year could we actually see those apps happen, along with a Pro Video Editor, Final Cut Go for example, Logic Go for music. All of these could keep their projects in iCloud, making it super easy to pick up and make changes to existing projects from the desktop and vice versa. I'm personally split on changing the way that multitasking works on the iPad is good or not though. If I could have a YouTube video playing in the background rather than taking up a massive portion of the screen without buying YouTube Premium, I think that would be pretty great. I'm just not sure that making an iPad more like a Mac is the right way to go, but I know I'm in the minority here. I just think let the iPad be the iPad, and people that are coming into the iPad ecosystem maybe actually prefer it that way, if they're not used to using Macs in the first place. macOS 13 Mammoth, however, almost zero leaks so far, so let me know in the comments what you'd like to see. For me, it's Apple maybe Sherlocking something like Parallels and offering their own first-party solution for virtualizing other operating systems on Apple Silicon, or adding a translation layer and framework like Rosetta that is basically for running Windows software natively on the Macs. That would kind of get rid of the whole having to virtualize a whole system to do it, and I think that might be a better solution, to be honest. I don't think anyone is just missing the interface of Windows, they just want to be able to run the software. Now, I know these are pretty vague across the board with all of the software platforms, but that's the thing with software. It's not made in a big factory overseas, it's made on laptops in or at least near Apple Park. Remote working is definitely still a thing, but it's not a thing that could be smuggled out and photographed and rendered like hardware so often is. So the event could still be full of surprises. Now, onto the juicy stuff. Hardware. Mac Pro with Apple Silicon makes a lot of sense, with Apple even teasing it at the spring event. What's unknown is what will power it. Many outlets are saying that the high-end version of M2 will be the one, starting with Apple's M2 Ultra and then coming down to the M2 chips, but that doesn't make any sense to me at all. I'd expect a pair or even 4 M1 Ultras inside the Mac Pro, if they even still call it that. I'd still like to see it called Power Mac as the name for the higher end, given that M1 Pro is only level 2 of the 4 that they currently offer, behind Max and Ultra. Currently, the Pro chip isn't even fast enough for the faster desktop options, the Mac Studio, which again isn't called Pro. Will Power Mac, and yes, I'm running with it, offer off-package memory and storage? I'd say 50-50 at best. Off-package RAM would throw out the unified memory architecture that is a huge part of why Apple Silicon is so fast and efficient, although I could see both being the option that would give more working memory, even if some of it is at a slower speed because it's off-board, for massive tasks like running software instruments in Logic and huge scientific modelling and simulations. Form factor wise, everyone seems to be expecting the same aesthetic look with the drilled out holes, which, God, they do look cool in real life, but also with a smaller casing. That makes sense, as these will almost certainly not support third-party GPUs or the like, although there could be PCI-type expansion options for I/O, storage, and similar expansion. I know there are a lot of studios, for example, that need to have a whole bunch of audio inputs and outputs in these things. But if Apple thought the performance of the Ultra was on par with the RTX 3090, spoilers, it isn't really in most of the tests, what on earth is this thing going to be competing with if it's going to have 2 to 4 times the power? This could be massive, especially when so many PCs are getting close to needing their own circuit in American homes because of the amount of power that they need to pull. About 1.8 kilowatts, I think, is all that a circuit over there can actually handle. Power Mac Pro would most likely be shipping later in the year, even if it is revealed at WWDC, possibly as late as December. That's what the form would say. There's a possibility, of course, of seeing development hardware for Apple Reality 2, as we talked about in yesterday's video, with a pair of 8K OLED displays, a larger 4K LCD for peripheral vision, and something around the power of an M1 Pro on board to drive all those pixels. But even if we do see this, don't expect it to be on sale anytime soon. The end of this year at the absolute earliest, but more likely into 2023. But most likely in the here's a new product and we'll actually let you buy it category is the M2 MacBooks of some kind and a Mac Mini. I say some kind of MacBooks because it's not clear if it will be the MacBook Air, the horrifically misnamed 13-inch MacBook Pro, or the far more sensible MacBook. Nope, nothing else to say here. If it is the 13-inch Pro, still with the touch bar and the LCD display, this is probably the worst of all worlds, especially if it keeps the $12.99 price point. If it's the MacBook Nothing, I'd expect it to be the new entry point for the MacBook range with the M2, the same design as the 13-inch Pro, but without that touch bar, and maybe without a keyboard backlight. Could you live without that if it drops the price enough? But that would still come with the same battery life, fan, and camera at $9.99, replacing the MacBook Air at the bottom of the lineup. But why would that make sense? Because the MacBook Air is the one most likely to get a revamp, including mini LED display tech for way better black levels, better brightness, thinner bezels, and giving the display a size bump from 13.3 to 13.6 inches without getting noticeably larger, and therefore probably the notch for a camera. Now these would keep the no-fan design, drop the wedge shape, and gain colours probably as bright as the iMac, and also get those light love 'em or hate 'em bezels on the display, and a white keyboard too. Now, I really love this idea as the throwback to the iBook colours, and I'm 100% here for it. The MacBook Air originally started off as being like a premium option, even if it wasn't the heavy-duty Pro model. But differentiating it from the 14-inch MacBook Pro, you wouldn't get ProMotion on the displays, and you wouldn't get all the connectivity, most likely retaining a pair of USB-C Thunderbolt ports and a headphone jack, maybe even the high-impedance one like the Pros, but also gaining a MagSafe charge port, which would free up one of those USB-C ports for other devices. The price is likely to go up given the redesign, so $11.99 has been the proposed price point. That's a lot of P's. But I think $12.99, where the old 13-inch Pro was, would also be pretty fair, especially if the $9.99 spot is taken by a MacBook. So, that's my thoughts for WWDC, and let's get on to that email from Craig. So during our live stream on Friday night, it was mentioned that it was Craig's birthday by someone in the chat. So we dropped him a quick email. It's actually really easy to find his email on Google, but I won't tell you here, I'm not doxing him. And I said, "Hey Craig, heard it's your birthday and just wanted to wish you an insanely great one. Kind regards, iCave Dave." And to my surprise and delight, I woke up the next morning to this in my inbox. "Hi Dave, it's true. It appears to be my birthday. Seems like a disturbing number of these have come to pass at this point, but I will endeavour to make this one insanely great. Thanks, Craig. Admittedly, he did use the American or wrong spelling of Endeavour. It does have a U in it, but nonetheless, it was a delightful reply from everyone's favourite, also with a U, Apple keynote presenter. So let's all just look forward to him showing the work behind the macOS Mammoth name coming a week from now. Thanks so much for watching, thanks to the Patreons, and leave me your questions in the comments with hashtag iCaveAnswers for future shows. See you in the next one.